Hi everyone.
Good evening. I hope all of you are doing well, especially the guys who are preparing for June attempt. I'm sure you all have a lot of doubts, concerns, and validations perhaps that you all are seeking. So, although generally in the coffee chats that we generally discuss, can't hear, not even now.
I can hear
Can
you.
anyone please confirm if you are able to hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. So until now, how we generally go about the coffee chats is we would just do a Q&A session, start especially from the students if you have any questions. Today, obviously, we will take that Q&A at the later end of the session. But first of all, we wanted to discuss some key takeaways that we feel that most of the students are lacking or perhaps are missing, and what actually can change your game in your last 40 days from here, especially for the June attempt. If there is anyone who is appearing for September attempt, these inputs and improvement points, all of that would surely be applicable, but perhaps it would be more relatable to you once you come closer to your attempt. But if anyone is from September attempt also, feel free to just keep on and listen to what others and we have to say.
Right. So, we have been marking cases for a lot of students these past few weeks, and there has been consistently, there has been, um, some things that we noticed in a lot of cases. And it's not an issue that we noticed in just a couple of people, but like most of the people that have been writing cases. Now we know that you guys are still 1.5 month, roughly 1.5 month away from the exam still, which is such a good thing because right now you still have, so much time at in your hand to kind of work on any shortcomings that you have.
Yeah.
So we like that is the reason that we, wanted to first take this kind of stage to ourselves to first let you know what we are feeling when we
Yeah.
review your cases, and then we can take the question
Yeah.
answers.
Because obviously it is easy to pass on the comments to each of the persons who are writing cases or for whom we are actually reviewing the cases. But obviously it is good to so that we can accumulate all of those feedbacks and then pass it as a basically as a session to all of you, so that you can even more the emphasis of what we are wanting to say on that piece of feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first point that we want to start off with is so Akshay, this session would be recorded and you can, come back again on this one.
And generally, we were just saying that we've noticed a pattern of things that, like every student that we are marking cases for has is doing those same mistakes, or we feel that that is lacking. So those are the points that we want to cover.
Yeah. So the first point that we want to start off with is the success map or the CFE success map that we have shared with all of you, whosoever is a part of our course already. So under the CFE success map, what we have actually shared is the structures which are applicable, or the CPA way of writing which is applicable for each of the competencies, such as for financial reporting, it is IGAR, issue, gap, analysis, response. For assurance, there is a separate structure. For risk, separate. For materiality, what we have been noticing, especially when we are reviewing these cases, that many students are not following that CPA way of writing appropriately. So obviously, you can write the gap, the integration, all of that in a different fashion. But if you are able to follow that structure or the CPA way of writing, that actually makes it very easy for the marker to identify where you have slotted what part of your response.
And those formats that we have provided you, those have come up from something, right? That those have come up from the way that it's also easier for the marker to distinguish between various stages of the response.
Yeah.
For example, in an FR question, you first start with the issue. So you will when we say you start with issue, that means you first mention what the issue in the question is. Then you do gap and analysis, right? That is the second step. So that means that you have to bring in either the relevant, framework from Nausea, or you paraphrase it and write it in your own words. Then we say you have to do the analysis. So you have to analyze it, use case facts to integrate the gap that you have brought in. Because see, if you simply just like bring in the gap, you start with your response, you bring in the gap, then you don't and this is what we are seeing in cases that candidates are what they're doing is they bring in gap and then they just conclude, right? They just conclude that based on the above, for example, let's say PPNE, this is the treatment for PPNE. But that's not correct. When you brought in the gap, when you brought in, say, the definition of PPNE,
Yeah.
whatever the two factors are, you have to say met, why met, not met, why not met, using the case facts. That is your analysis. Once you do the analysis, then the next step is recommendation or conclusion that based on the above analysis, this asset in question is a PPNE or qualifies as a PPNE and should be capitalized. And then you give the financial impact, which is the journal entry. So, and the thing why it like came out so much to us is because if this had been coming from people who did not have our course or did not have these formats very specifically laid out, it would have made sense that maybe the students don't have enough clarity on what format they need to follow,
Yeah.
or what approach they should follow in writing. But then it feels disappointing to us when we see
Yeah.
that you already have that whole crack PDF with you. And even then, I think in the last case that we were marking,
Yeah.
there was a question on audit procedures. And like I don't know how many times we emphasized during the lectures, also during the strategy sessions, that whenever there is a audit procedures question, your format should always be RAP.
Yeah.
First you do the risk, then you do assertion, then you write the procedure. And I was like amazed to see so many people just like they directly started with procedure. And even in the procedure, we keep emphasizing you have to write why. And then people just like simply write, okay, like maybe audit this bank statement.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I'm clueless if it is the time or if it is, you haven't revised that again in from some time.
So at this point of time, students, honestly, what should come out as improvement points or fallouts, honestly, should be, let's say you are doing a question on revenue recognition and you're not able to identify the technical appropriately. That is fine. That is something which may not happen in the exam, because in the exam you may face a familiar question. Sometimes the cases are difficult. That is fine. But you have to stick to the basics. We
Yes.
have, especially the strategy sessions, some students could be a case have not attended the strategy sessions or have partially seen the strategy sessions or have not maybe revised the strategy session. It is very important, especially because there was a very specific reason why we have summed up the entire course in less than 50 hours, was so that you can revise all what we have done multiple times. The reason of multiple revision is obviously so that it gets ingrained in your mind, right?
Because see, the human mind is going to forget things and why we keep saying that you have to revise technicals every 2 weeks, because you will tend to keep forgetting what you read. And even now, like we receive queries from people where they're saying that we are trying to, and this is for September attempt people, that they will say that we have watched the videos twice and we have memorized FR technicals. Now should we start with case writing? So we always go back to them and say that the point is not that you have to remember and memorize all of it today. The point is that you should revise it so many times that you naturally start retaining the concepts. You don't have to read it 5 times at once so that your mind starts ratifying it in that manner, right? So like that is why we keep saying that you have to keep revising it so that it stays fresh in your mind. And this was the second point, that like we are seeing that candidates tend to miss some technicals, even if they are writing technicals in FR or even in assurance, we noticed, like, like from a very holistic view of many cases this time, we are feeling that you are not revising technicals. Like, by a show of hands or thumbs up, anybody who's revised technicals in the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Or maybe, who is revising technicals regularly? Could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks. If someone wants to just throw off emojis, hearts, thumbs up, anything. Okay, Jalpa, Paul, Kashif,
I see
Akshay,
3, 4, 5
Varun,
people.
Indu. Nice. And that's good, right? So even yeah, so Riddhi, nice. So it is good whosoever is doing that because it is very important. Technical surely is very important. We are still sticking to the first and second point, which is like success map and technical revision. Technical revision, do it regularly, could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and could be daily as well. Maybe 30 minutes a day. Maybe, some people like it, maybe a couple of standards because you know how easily we have summarized everything. If you actually want to revise 4 or 5 standards, it would take 30 minutes, 40 minutes. That is all.
And that is a very good point. You don't have to pick up the whole like bunch of 6 subjects of technicals, at one day after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can break it into 30 minutes of capsules every day where you first revise FR, like 4 standards every day, then you move to audit slowly, then you move to, management accounting formulas, finance,
Yeah.
like, in this way.
So from here, guys, we are 40 days away. We should be doing the technical revision 2 times at least from here, and once right before the exam. Like maybe, the things which you tend to forget easily. So 40 days, 2 times revision is something which is surely required. Whosoever, wherever you are at in terms of your preparation, this is very much achievable. And once you should be doing just right before the exams, maybe 3 4 days before the exams, a very high level overview. Back in the day when Guneet and I used to prepare for CFE, we didn't even used to go into the standards. Sometimes at a very helicopter view, we would just see this index and see, okay, what is there in related party? Couple of
Because
points.
these are so simple.
Yeah, at least say 60 to 80, or I should say 70% of the standards in financial reporting can be done in 3 hours. Like if you are actually, thorough with your technicals, it can be done in just 3 to 4 hours. And I'm not saying learning all of it, just quickly looking at it. Okay, what was there in this one? We are not talking about leases or revenue. So, you need to understand the materiality of the things. If you will actually focus, no, I have done 95% of the standards, but 5% I don't know, then you are ignoring the 95%, because in CFE 95% will make you pass. If you will just focus on 5%, which can take 10 hours, 20 hours, then you're not focusing. So this is not strategy based preparation, then you are just working hard. And
This is the same thing, I'll be honest here. We feel on the CCA thing as well. Like, candidates have raised these questions in the group about CCA, but we feel that CCA is just a little component. If you go to previous year cases, CCA is just one little component in a full-fledged tax question generally, right? Let's say you don't know CCA today and you still have any confusion, you're not able to understand. Even if you miss that or you do it wrong on the day of the case, you will not fail because of that little thing. But we have seen students who focus so much on that one or two little things that they are not able to sync in their heads, and then they just like keep going back to it, and we feel like there's 98% of syllabus which you should be focusing on instead, right? If you remember back in the day when we used to be doing our global accounting as well, exams as well, there used to be a couple of top topics that we weren't that confident on, and we would just like skip them, that maybe this is not as important, I should just like not waste much time on this and then focus instead on the more important things. So that should be your approach at this point, instead of digging every little thing.
And CCA, we don't want to focus just on CCA. That is just one of the examples that we are saying. And see, the worst part is whatever was applicable on CCA is no longer there. There's a very high chance that it may not even get tested. So we are preparing for some things, a provision which has gone away, and still we are just drooling over it. So our focus is not on CC, our focus is for all of you, and we were a bit concerned, which is why we specially conducted this coffee chat, that all of you need to focus on the bigger things, the things which matter. Again, reiterating, financial reporting, 80% of the standards can get actually done in 20% of the time, and 20% may take 80% time. We agree on that, but you need to focus on the bigger things. You have to give yourself that motivation. And especially the thing is, if you actually keep on drooling over the little things, then you will be just wasting these 40 days. You need to be very strategic in your preparation from here on, irrespective wherever you are at in terms of your preparation. If you have done all your technicals, all your cases, still these 40 days are very important, because the energy gets carried on in the exam. So yeah.
The next point is the strategy session. Again, we have been leaving these comments also in cases, some of the case feedbacks that we are giving. It really looks to us like, again, just like the technicals, that I don't know, we just sense it from the way we see the cases written, that you've not either revised the strategy session, or I believe so. Like there is some kind of gap that we feel, because when we see, repetitive mistakes in cases, and those mistakes are on things which we have like repeated so many times in our sessions, then it's natural for us to feel that it's either like that the candidates are not revising those sessions, maybe not watching them again, or I don't know if it is
Yeah.
time management.
Yeah.
Like it, again, like this is the reason we wanted to come here and say this, because like all of you, maybe with whatever we are saying, you're trying to look into your cases and your understanding, or maybe your revisions, and this is kind of a wake up call for you, because the best thing is that you still have a lot of time even right now. So we wanted to come here, and this might like look to you like, we're just like scolding you, but it's more of, we just wanted to come here and do that, so that you realize that you're very close to the exam, and the approach that you have for these 40 days is going to either make you or break you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, one thing more I want to put in furtherance to what Guni just mentioned. So we have 40 days. I like, we don't even know, even need any show of hands here as to how many people have done the technicals and have started writing cases, because we know, right? Because many of you have done your technicals, most of you have started writing cases, and most of you would have written around 10 to 15 range of cases already. So, and this is an example we have quoted multiple times to many students. At this stage, at this very stage, we have seen students who came to us as new students 40 to 50 days before the exam, knowing nothing at all about CFE, and still were able to clear CFE
in the first attempt.
in the first attempt. And this was not second attempt. They never knew anything about CFE. They were not newly qualified chartered accountants or internationally trained accountants. They cleared this, accountancy back in the day, like 10, 15 years back. Still, they were able to clear. What do you think, would have made them pass? Strategies. Because if, relating to the points that we first mentioned, if you will drool over the smaller points, then, no one can save you there. Second is, yeah, that was the point that I'm trying to make here, that 50 days, if someone can start from the scratch and then also clear it, then imagine how ahead are you from that
You guys
student.
are way ahead, right?
So you need to take leverage of that preparation that you have already done. Because I see sometimes the kind of questions that we receive are pretty minuscule to the closeness that you are, like 40 days before the exams. The kind of minuscule questions sometimes we get worried that why are you drooling over the small little points. Because at this time your focus should be to leverage all what you have done, and we can understand why those questions are coming. A part of it is because of our course also, because when you are able to cover the entire course in 50 hours, you have so much of time that you tend to dig more into things rather than revising the same thing there are two ways. One is do the course in the 50 hours that we give and revise it 4 times. Second is you do it once and then try to dig into it and then, try to, basically take out things which even we don't want it to, pass it on. So the point is, look at the bigger things. You are very much ahead of the, any other students, like who have passed in the previous attempts as well. And the strategy sessions are very, very important. Couple of attempts before, we didn't even use to conduct strategy sessions. Like these sort of coffee chat sessions were the source of, passing the information to the students. But then we created strategy session. Reason was so that we can give you structured information.
And like all at one place. If we say that this was a strategy session for day one, we wanted to make sure that everything that we know about day one, we are able to pass to you in that one lecture. And all of that is like pure gold. Like we sit for hours before the session and we make a list of the points and strategies and different tips and tricks, and that is how we cover everything in those strategy sessions with you. And this applies to every strategy session. So our basic expectation is that you at least watch it a couple of times and keep reminding yourself of, like whatever we say in all those sessions, right? So that is the point. And, another thing is that recently, and I think a lot of you would relate to this, that as the time comes closer, people start having doubts at themselves, their preparation, lack of confidence. And obviously, like there's so many things you always feel like, maybe if I defer this attempt, if I not, write this attempt, maybe I can defer to the next one and I'll, do more justice to it then. So just want to say one thing. See, if you give yourself that option or that alternative, that you have a second option, then your mind will never be able to focus on in the direction that you want it to work, right? We don't have any problem in answering those questions, no matter how many times you come to us with those. But the point is that once you have set your mind to something, don't give your mind that option that, oh, I'll see, maybe if I don't feel like I'm, up to it 100%, then I'll just like take my name back, I'll, like withdraw from the exam and I'll maybe do it in the next attempt. Because that even in next attempt, you're not sure how much, how will the life circumstances be, if you will be able to give more time than you are able to today or not. And then time is obviously passing, right? Like you still have 40-50 days. Why not like work whatever, with whatever energy you have in yourself today, direct all of it towards this, get done with this exam, you will have your designation and you're good to go, right? Like why give yourself that cushion that, maybe I'm not able to focus right now, maybe I'll just, defer the attempt and then look at it later on. So don't give yourself that choice.
Yeah.
Right? Just set your mind that, okay, I have to do it in this attempt, and just like, get done with it. Because if you think of it like that, then you will be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Adding on to what Guneet has just mentioned a bit about the anxiousness and tendency to pass on the exam to the next attempt or defer to the next attempt. Most of you already know that in the previous attempts, the success rate within our academy has been more than 90%. Obviously, there are various reasons to it, but we don't want to talk about the 90% today. We want to talk about the 10%. Why those 10% students who have all the right resources, the right guidance, the right mentoring, and they have reasonable amount of time as well for preparation, why do they not pass? Main reason, or the most primary reason, which no one talks about, like no one talks about this reason, but we want to mention it today, is the anxiousness. We have seen students write 6 to 10 cases in total, and passing CFE in their first attempt. And we have seen students in that 10% category of not passing writing 25 cases and still not passing. The reason is, mindset. If you would always think that, that I am lacking somewhere, I am not enough for this exam. Maybe there are students who come through the standard CPA study route. I am an international accountant. I may not be able to compete with them, because even in the exams, like today, you may not be knowing, in the exams you will see this yourself. The candidates who come through the CPA standard route, those guys would be sitting around you, finishing up the exams perhaps 20 minutes before you as well. Like that would be a case, and because they are used to this way of writing. But our point again is, those 10% people who do not pass within our academy is due to lack of confidence, with lack of confidence, not on technicals, not on case writing, on themselves, like basically questioning themselves and thinking that they are not enough for the exam. So mindset is very, very important. We don't want to sound philosophical here today in the session, but mindset is very important for the exam. You need to be basically be more strong, that whatever process you are following on your own with us, the course that you have taken, the mentoring that you are still receiving, all of that makes sense.
And it is going to be, everything is going in your favor in this life. You have to have faith in life,
Yeah.
in God, in yourself. Because like these couple of students that Ravneet is talking about, like they used to, in the case marking, they used to do so well. But after every two cases, I remember that we used to have call with them because they didn't feel confident, and they used to be like, I'm feeling very anxious, I'm feeling very nervous, I don't know if I'll be able to do good. And like we used to do all the pickup and everything, motivate them. But then on the day of exam, they were not able to complete the exam just because they got very nervous and they felt that, oh, I like they just froze, right? And this happens. I had a friend myself who got so anxious when she went in the exam, she just left midway. Like that was the level, right? So again, that's the point, that um you just have to have faith that everything is still working out and it will work out. And this is all a process. When you start with the case writing on day one, obviously there will be flaws, right?
Yeah.
Because you're doing it for the first time. You can't expect that the very first day you write a case, you will know everything about it, and you will score 5 C's in a six question exam, or even a 7 question exam. Even 1 2 C's you are
That's true.
getting is good. And the practice cases are practice because you are meant to make mistakes in them. The more mistakes you make today, the better it is.
Yeah.
Like I see that most of the people see it in the opposite way, that if they are getting less C's today,
Yeah.
they will get nervous that, oh, why am I getting
Yeah.
only 4 C's or 2 C's or 2 RC's? The point is, you should be happy that you are getting less C's today, because that is the learning you are taking.
Yeah.
You tell me, for all the questions that you get a C on, do you look at them? I don't think so. Right? Because you already got to see what will you debrief well or in detail in that. But you will focus on the questions that you get RC on, that you get NC on, that you get NA on, right? So that is the thing. Today, getting more anything except
Great.
C's is good, right? Because you're able to spend that much time on
Yeah.
improving your skills.
Yeah, and adding on, even on the C's, I know it is difficult, but when you're debriefing, still try to see what more the CPA study response has given you. Not because your response was incompetent, but because you can evolve your mindset. Think from the CPA point of view as well. Think from CPA body point of view as well, because obviously there would be procedures, there would be risk, there would be suggestions or recommendations that you feel, I don't think I could have written in this way. That should be taken in a positive sense. But if you take it in the other sense, that I can't do this, and especially I know many of you already have written some day twos, but day two is a very humbling experience. Like once you do write a couple of day twos, then you would feel that you are not made for CFE, because that feeling comes to 90% of the candidates, that maybe CFE is not for me, this was very difficult. And that is what we wanted to mention here on the anxiousness part.
But the crux is that if you are at point A and you have to reach point B, and there is a river or like a pond in between, whatever, and you don't know swimming, but you know that you have to reach there, so you will try, right? You will still continue trying. But then if you give yourself the option that, oh, maybe if I don't do it, I'm good where I'm sitting today, you will never be able to try if you give yourself that alternative. Obviously, the mind will choose to stay put wherever you are, because that is comfortable, right?
I'll just modify that philosophy a bit. Like, you should have the mindset that will eventually cross the river. So if you know that you will cross the river, now you just need to figure out how will you cross. So you have to cross the river in this attempt only. So just be positive about things. I know things sound philosophical and things like that, but it is actually very
But these are things that we speak to people individually. So we thought that these are things that, everybody needs to hear probably, because sometimes you have these thoughts in mind, but you don't reach out to us, right? And then, but some people do. So we believe that these are things that everybody should hear at this point, so that you kind of strong in your ambition that you have to get through this attempt, right?
Then coming back like a bit outside of philosophy, so time management is one of the important things that we want to talk about again. When you are writing your cases, please adhere to the case timelines. If it is a 70 or 80-minute case, you have to divide your time. You don't have to, see, okay, like FR, this sort of FR question, I should be giving 17 minutes, 18 minutes. Let's talk about day three. And in fact, in the strategy session, we have discussed about time management in very detail as to how you should be dividing. Just have those ballpark, timelines in your mind. When you are practicing the cases, one of the big tips that we give you, that please note down how much time you are investing in each of the AOs, so that you can keep a track of time, because obviously time will always be short, but after a couple of cases, at least you can know in which sort of AOs your time is more or less. Mostly people spend maximum time in financial reporting. Then you need to see how you can improve that. Maybe you can, decrease your verbiage a bit, write basically like less words, but it indicates the same things. Maybe you are just spending more time on searching in nausea, things like that.
And I'm also feeling that a lot of people are spending more time in MA just because you try to make the response perfect, right? You want to cover all the components given in the question, which obviously takes time. So even your MA questions are taking a lot of time. But the thing is that if you give yourself the time that no matter what question it is, I only have, let's take a day three example, 10 minutes or 11 minutes. Now, when you give yourself that 11 minutes by the clock, you should not exceed it, right? What is happening and what we are seeing in cases, and this happens with everybody, like these are not things that are just happening to you and just happening in this attempt. This happens every time we mark cases, right? So what happens is that we see in cases people have missed two questions, not attempted. Day three also, day two also, the same thing. Now, how does that happen? If you are missing AOs, it is um, a very simple answer is that you are giving more time to the AOs that you are attempting. Now, if you fix when you are starting a day three, you have it in your mind that I have to wrap up every question in 11 minutes, and you go by the clock. Now, if you start a question at 9, now you know that by 9:11, I should be done with this question and move on to the next, no matter if you were able to complete it or not. Like, for example, if it's an FR question, it took you some more time in doing the analysis, but you saw the watch again. Like, you have to continuously keep a check on the time. So you saw your watch and it was 9:08, and you felt like, now is the time I need to wrap up. I need to do the recommendation. I need to do the financial impact entry. And only then you will be able to move to the next AO at 9:12. Right? So this is how you have to go about it. If you keep sitting on that same AO for say 15 minutes, now it's 9:15. Similarly, you start the next AO, you spend 15 minutes on that. So that 3 minute that you are exceeding in every question is ultimately letting you miss two questions altogether.
Yeah.
So the thing here is that you need to wrap up, right? Even in MA, we used to mention this, I think, in the strategy sessions in our previous coffee chats, that in an MA question, you don't have to attempt each and every component that is given if you don't have the time.
Yeah.
If you feel like you are in a rush, and you might miss on the question itself, like the next questions. So then what you can do is you can simply first start with the basic addition, subtraction, basic calculations, which are on the face. And let's say there are two complex calculations, you can only do one, right? And if you feel like you were not able to, you don't have time for the second, just leave it. But
right.
you were able to complete 90% of the question, right?
Yeah.
That is the point. You don't have to achieve full 100, but just 90, but conclude at the end. That is what we mean when we say you have to wrap up your response. Leave it wherever you are, but wrap it up. End it with the conclusion, recommendation, whatever it is, depending on which subject you are at.
And there is a 70-30 chance that even in those cases you may get a C.
Yeah.
Otherwise, high chance that you would get a RC, but you may still get a C. But if you would just miss the conclusion altogether, then in fact, like instead of getting a C, you may barely reach RC.
And in that case, what will still happen is if you give 15 minutes, you'll get C in that. But then the two questions that you missed out on, you didn't even get an RC in that. You
Correct.
just got an NA, which is
Bad.
like, yeah, the lowest, right?
Yeah.
So you need to get at least RC in, the questions that you could not fully do justice to.
Yeah. So try attempting as many questions as you can by managing your time was the key takeaway here. So moving on to the next point is around nausea. We have seen many students using or copy pasting the text from nausea directly into their responses where under IGAR the gap needs to be mentioned. They would copy paste from nausea. Then when time comes from integration, they would maybe write nothing, maybe write met or not met, and not try to integrate with the case facts. We just want to re-emphasize one point again here, that just reproducing the text from nausea or reproducing the technicals from your own knowledge will not award you anything at all. You can write n number of technicals that you want, show your knowledge there. It won't matter if you're not integrating with the facts of the case.
And again, strategy sessions, back to that, because we covered everything in those sessions. If you remember, we mentioned very specifically that in day two, a lot of people fail day twos because of depth in assurance, depth in FR. Now, this one thing that Ramit mentioned, that people bring in the gap from nausea, don't do the case analysis, then simply do the recommendation, financial impact, everything. But they didn't do that analysis. That analysis is what gives you depth. You didn't do that. So even if all your responses were correct, your conclusions were correct, even your the numeric the like the amounts of entries that you suggested, even if those were correct, if you didn't do your case analysis with the gap, you will lack depth and you will fail. And if you fail, you should know that you will be writing both day 2 and day 3 again, right?
Yes.
So don't put yourself at that risk, because like we literally saw this the other day in the cases that people brought in text from nausea. That was good to see that where things are in nausea, you're able to bring them in, but there was no integration. And we literally saw people just said met, not met. That is not integration. You have to explain why it is met, which case fact tells you that like the case or the company meets that or does not meet that. You have to explain it in one liner. Met as the case mentions this and this, not met because of this. Just one liner, but you have to do it. Third point is, we also saw some students did the analysis, but if when you bring in text from nausea, it comes in a certain format, font, right? Like sometimes it's italicized, sometimes it's like maybe it's in a different font altogether. We mentioned in the strategy sessions that when you are doing your own analysis, do it when you like say met because, but then bold it, make it in bold, or I think bold is a better because it will segregate it. We as markers, we noticed that people did it, but they did it in the same font. Now, what happens when you do that analysis in the same font? It just gets lost, because sometimes nausea paragraphs are 3 to 4 paragraphs, right? Now,
Especially day two, right?
especially day two. So if you are if you're doing your own analysis, but you're doing it in continuation to each paragraph, for me as a marker, I don't even think if I will have the time to, read each line and then see where the nausea ended and where your case analysis started.
So you need to think from marker point of view. If you are the marker, will you even go ahead and find the response of the student? Obviously, it is their ethical responsibility, right? Understand that. We also understand that. But if you are making them, things easy to present, the lesser they would get into your answer.
Bold, I can directly see that this was from nausea. I will not even read nausea because I'm a marker. I already know the answer. I just need to see what was the analysis that you did? What is your thinking and your perspective?
Yeah.
I don't want to read nausea. That's just a format part of the exam, right? So you have to like segregate it so that from the look of it, I can see that, okay, the student did the analysis.
Okay, so next point. Another thing that we emphasize every now and then, and we discussed earlier in the session today as well, that number of cases is not important. If you have written many cases already, let's say you are already around 20, 22, 23 type of cases, or maybe even in the range of 15 to 20. And then once you reach the total of 26 cases that we have provided you in the schedule, and now you want to even outreach that, sure, do it on your own, but we just want to clarify that just writing cases won't matter. Debrief is very, very important. The more time you spend on debrief is, in philosophical words, is like introspecting. So basically going into your own case, thinking not where did I go wrong, or in fact, in positive words, how can I improve? How can I, maybe write more, like how CPA is writing? How can I improve my structure? Great that I got a couple of RCs in this case, but why I could not, like, let's say if you were at NC, how can I go from NC or not competent to reasonable competency? How from RC to C? Things like that. So always just think in a positive direction as to what sort of takeaways can I take from this case.
And like if you are at that stage where you have written 20 cases, you can always go back to the first 2, 3, 4, 5 cases because those will be the cases which you would have performed. Yeah, you would have forgotten, and those were your initial cases. So your performance at those would have been simply the worst, right? Because you didn't know anything at that point. Rewrite those cases today and then see where you stand today. It will give you a good reflection of where you are at, but then you will also be able to see, like this is a thing that I still need to improve. I still need to work on. So maybe you can try doing that if you are at that stage.
Yeah. And whenever you are in doubt, I would suggest, and in fact, even not in doubt, try taking out some time and go through the strategy sessions again. Try to go through what we discussed in that, because now all of those things may make even more sense. Because when we conducted the strategy sessions originally, at that time, actually, you did not, like, you guys had not written the cases, but now you have written, say, 10, 12, 15 cases.
Yeah.
Now all of those things would make even more sense.
Those will be much more meaningful things to know now, right?
Yeah.
But as tutors, that was the time that we had to do those sessions because you were just starting writing cases. So we needed to cover those case simulations.
Because we didn't want you to, just go around and write
Yeah.
cases headless.
Yeah. But then, like I feel that it is possible that some of you are revising technicals, but you are maybe revising technicals from the notes and you are not watching the lectures. And I understand that that is also a correct way. But if it's possible, maybe once in a while, maybe once before the exams, whenever you get a chance, maybe go through the lectures in itself. And why I say that is because when we are teaching, that we don't just read, we are
Explaining
like
things.
we are explaining things, we are telling you how to memorize things, we are telling you various tips and tricks on how to attempt that, how can questions come from that technical, like there's so many things that we are telling in those lectures.
Let's say
In
like
addition to the strategy sessions, right?
Let's say in financial reporting, we cover the entire FR in roughly, I think, 7 to 8 hours, even lesser than that if you just take out the student doubts from there. So 7 hours is something which you would invest even on your own. So why not just,
Revise that through lectures,
the lectures?
because you will learn more for sure, and you did learn it then. It's just that you might have forgotten it because it has been so long ago since we conducted those lectures, right? So the good thing is that you have those recordings, so just use them, right? I think these are all the things that we wanted to
share from our we know that it was a coffee chat. Some of you may be thinking that, generally coffee chats is Q&A sessions. So this time, all of these questions we had in advance, sometimes from one student, sometimes from another. And obviously, we also wanted to pass a lot of feedback from our side. So yes, first we would be taking some questions from the chat if we have any, and then we can take questions by raise of hands. Question from Isha. Can you please provide an overview of the success or passing criteria for all 3 days? I mean, what should we be aiming for? C's are C's for all 3 days to clear the exam. So on this, Isha, there is no fixed pattern, neither by CPA, neither by anyone officially, right? You should just try to aim for C's, but even if you get RCs, that is fine. There is no fixed criteria.
Like there is no, like for any of the days there, we don't know if 3 C's or 3 RCs is required. It's just that you need to get at least C's and RCs, not before that. Another thing, C and CD is graded the same. So do not aim for CDs, just aim for C's.
Yeah, just aim for C's. And when we say aim for C's, if you are writing cases with us, you would have the feedback guides. Just see, what is actually needed to get a C. It is clearly mentioned how you get actually a C. So just see for yourself, how do you actually, what is the difference between RC and C? And also sometimes see what is the difference between C and RC. What I mean by that is, let's say if you have just 5 minutes and you're stuck and you need to attempt a AO. Let's say you have just one AO with you. What best you could have done or could be doing to get a RC? Just as a backup, you should be knowing how to actually even get a RC. Question from Zahid. Suppose someone wants to revise technicals and want to start case writing from tomorrow. How many hours he or she should be dedicating daily? We are not taking into consideration whether you work or not. 40 days, anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. If depends on where you are at in terms of your preparation, right? Let's say if you are wanting to like start case writing from tomorrow itself, you have not written any case at all. Obviously, you need to invest that much of time. But if someone has already done the cases, has written some cases, obviously you are well ahead of the curve. So anywhere between 2 to 4 or 5 hours, something like that. NCNA will definitely hurt, right? So by hurt, not sure what you mean, Akshay, there, but obviously it will degrade your ranking. And as as we have mentioned earlier as well, no one knows how many RCC, NC
Yeah,
are
but
good for you,
NC or NA is something
not
that will
counted.
not give you marks. So obviously you need to aim for at least RC, if not C.
Yeah. Now we can take questions on raise of hands. Riddhi.
Hi Ravneet, hi Guneet. I have a question that in SNG, how many points should be written in each points? Like there are some like what can I say that just
Like the board of director and audit committee questions, those ones.
yeah, kind of.
So, like, we would say that you try to remember all the points that we have mentioned, because the thing is that on the day of exam, it's generally possible that you don't remember everything and then you only remember four of them. So,
Yeah.
whatever you remember, but then try to remember all of them today. Try to make an acronym or something if that's possible, but then, like, we would suggest that you try to remember all of them.
And what if content of that points are not matching with CPA Institute's responses?
That's fine. So, you just, as we always say, just see the direction of the response. You can never match them, and we don't have to match them. You are a CPA of your own, like you are given a position of a CPA in the exam. So you need to think from your own mind. You don't need to match, just see the direction of the response.
Because like if even if we talk about audit committee, it's not like CPA Institute will mention some new points altogether in it, right? Like the wording can be a little different. Maybe you've paraphrased it in easier words, but then obviously like the essence would still say the same. But yeah, just try to use those points: internal controls and managing the board, overseeing, supervising. Like these sort of keywords would obviously help you get a C.
And can I give my own recommendation, whatever I feel right?
Yeah, you have to give as per your own analysis.
Because SNG questions, generally in SNG, there would only be a couple, maybe like one or two questions, which would be the board of director, audit committee, or things like that.
Yeah.
Generally, SNG questions are very logical. Like you will read the question and you even can't tell if it's SNG, because those are generic questions that this is happening in the company.
Yeah.
Like I remember from one case, there was this question that there was this guy who they had contracted with, and he did some embezzlement and then he left, and now after 2 years he wants to come back. So can you suggest what considerations should the board
Yeah.
take? Now, in this case, it is not an SNG question, it is a logical question. You just have to make up points, from your own mind and say that there is a risk that he might do the same thing again, like he can embezzle cash and there are trust issues, things like that,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's intuitive.
And one last question that for other cases, where can I get feedback guide format?
So those are not publicly available, and unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No worries.
No problem.
Yes, Karun. Karun. Okay, perhaps we can take question from Paul.
Okay, thanks guys for all those inputs today. I had a couple questions related to audit procedures. So the case that was scheduled this Sunday, right, Bold plant, there was a specific case on where they had a food truck and they had like four regulations, and we had to comment on any procedures that we would do to comply with those regulations. Now, I mean, I followed the same format. What is the regulation? What is the impact if, say, somebody doesn't follow it, and what's the procedure? But then when I see the board response, right, they've just given like, okay, this is the regulation and these are the procedures. So are there like specific audit procedure questions where the implication doesn't really matter? Because they
Need to
hadn't
rephrase
given.
that. Can you rephrase that?
So the format that we follow, right? If in case of any audit procedure, we write the risk, we write what is the implication if this goes wrong,
The
and
assertion,
then
right?
yes, assertion as well as like some areas they're also asking for like implications, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and then there is a procedure that we would write. But
Mm-hmm.
then in this specific question, right? And then they had I think 3 or 4 audit procedure questions within that within that case altogether. And then for this specific question, they just mentioned the regulation, and they just mentioned, okay, this is the procedure what you would follow to comply with, say, the food safety standard, or say somebody who's
Yeah.
looking at the refrigerator temperature time or not time.
Yeah.
So are there like specific questions where we could say skip the implication and then
No,
might
not
as
really.
well?
See, as you yourself mentioned, Paul, here, the RAP or risk, what went wrong procedures, that format is typically followed in standard or typical audit procedure questions, such as, standard ones are if you want to audit, let's say, inventory, AR, AP, this is something general. So this is not pure audit procedures as we typically call in assurance. In these ones, even if you skip the risk part of it and you directly go towards the procedures, that is fine. So basically, crux is if you are facing a typical audit procedure question, which is inventory, AR, AP, something related to financials, that is where the RAP actually comes in.
Got it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really helpful. Thank you for that. And then I think the other question that I had is in day 2 specifically, right? We would attempt the assurance questions first and then go to FR and MA. And then most of the assurance questions, right? There would be for sure like maybe 2 audit procedures. One of it could be accounting issues as such. And then like when we have not really read the accounting issues in depth at the start and we directly go to like say the audit procedures, how do we kind of then think about it? Do we then go back to the accounting issues and then come back again? Like how do we typically then attempt that question? So say
So
for
some
example, yeah,
students do the audit procedures with the FR because the issue is fresh. Some students do FR separately, audit separately. As you know that, we suggest you to prioritize assurance. So, Guneet, do you have to say anything on
Like,
that?
I would say that if it's only one question that you are keeping for the last, and then you know that as soon as you will attempt the FR issues, you will, like go back and do the assurance question, that is completely all right. Like the focus is that you just have to complete all the audit issues, like all the audit questions.
got it. Yeah, because there were like certain procedures out there with respect to valuations or checking like the assumptions,
Yeah.
which you wouldn't really know unless you would have read the
Yeah.
accounting
Yeah.
side of things as
That's
well.
right.
So you can
Um,
do those questions first when you're doing, on in the sequence and then go back to the assurance procedures.
And the good thing is that the procedures related to financial reporting are assessed more or less always as just as 1 AO. So you are just deferring 1 AO, so which is fine.
Thank you.
Right? Yes, Saisha.
Uh, Hi, I just want to ask you that I am um, having my attempt in September, and I was just doing the technicals for now and have not attempted any case studies. So I just wanted to confirm like if I'm on the right track. I have done FR and finance for now, and I'm
Mhm.
working like studying
Yeah.
taxation.
Yeah. So in fact, we will roll out a communication email as well that with the September plan. So we have devised the September study planner as well now, and we will roll out to all of our students that. So from that planner only, I'm mentioning starting June 1 is the time that you should start writing cases. Which
Okay.
cases to write, how many cases to write, in which week you should be writing that. We will share that with you. So, given the situation that you have mentioned, you are still 40 days away from June 1. So, just spend all of that time doing the technicals, revising it multiple times, howsoever time you want to revise it, and also do the strategy sessions, the recorded ones that you have. So, just try to, basically finish up on your technicals and revise it a couple of times that you can, and you are on the right track.
Okay, so just that I have to do like on a daily basis 30 minutes for whatever I have
Yeah.
already done, right?
Yeah, like even 30 minutes for the next 40 days will be like 20-25 hours, and you are
Mm-hmm.
almost done with half of it. So, that would cover all of your technicals.
Okay. One more question, like since I am very much familiar with IFRS, so I'm able to recall that whenever I think of it. But like for the ASPE, I know that you have made us study IFRS and ASPE all together, but like the ASPE portion, I still don't remember. So like, can you tell me a trick wherein it is like feasible for me to learn to recall ASPE as well?
Honestly, short trick, what we like, how we go about our course as well, is just to remember the difference. Generally, if you would see at a very high level, and even students for appearing for June can comment on that, like 60 to 70%, or even 60 to 80% is largely or principally the same. So first understand, what is that about? And then as one of the student is mentioning in the chat as well, like IFRS is more work. So whenever you think that you need to go retrospectively, more or less, that is where IFRS comes. And whenever the standards are a bit simplistic, that is where ASPE comes. But largely, principally, they are in the same lines. Just try to remember the differences. Do not try to remember IFRS separately and ASPE separately. Just
Mm-hmm.
try to remember one standard as just one, and just try to, see what the differences are. What the differences are. And that is what we have covered in the like in our notes as well, and the sessions too.
Okay. Okay. And like since our organization helps us go through the plan as well, like for CFE, but like in addition, I joined your session. So I think they are letting us getting us into capstone too as well. So like will your case study thing would help to uh do the capstone thing also?
Yeah, on this, I can share with you another of our YouTube video too. But just to answer you briefly here, is how we go about our case marking is very similar to how Capstone 2 is also done. If they are actually sponsoring you already, if you just want to go with them, that is completely fine, because in the end, your our objective for you as well is to get your cases reviewed. Either it is from CPA, either it is from any other tutor, in the end, that is our objective. If they are sponsoring it for you, you can just go ahead with them. And perhaps, this is something we can chat on later as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah.
Yes, Karun.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, we can
So,
hear you.
yeah. So, the question I have is like in some of the FR AOs, like the last one was on the government assistance, the case you gave us, right? So there was an interlinkage between the financial instruments as well. And in the leases one, there was like the definition had also to be given. Now, sometimes like especially the linkage with another accounting standard, that didn't occur to me, to be very honest, right? So like how are these kind of linkages, are these very critical maybe to get an RC or a C, or like if we majorly cover the government assistance only and not the financial instrument or the definition part in case of leases, are we good, or like how critical that is?
Uh, Honestly, Karun, this is a this is a good position to be in if you are looking at the technical side of things. So this is where we actually want the student to be in. That is what we mentioned in the initial phase of the session also, that if you are not able to identify something, and that is where you are trying to improve on, that is where exactly we want you to. So uh, like good work on that you are focusing now, like more on the technical side of things. And when you say how critical is integrating between two different standards and all of that, see, generally, you know, these sort of questions actually don't come every now and then. The three cases, let's say, even the three cases that you get on day three, the difficulty level is like one is easy, second is medium, and third is difficult. So you will always face these sort of cases or questions or AOs which are, which have a higher difficulty level. So it is always good to, just take some takeaways from there, but generally you do not see those interlinkages between different standards. Sometimes they can occur. There is a chance that, both of the standards where the interlinkage is actually happening, it is relatively easy and you are able to interrelate. But where you are not, it is fine. Just keep that as a takeaway. Generally, you do not have that level of complexity.
Okay, that helps. And the second one is, Ravneet, the board issue response. Like if it's a day three case and we do it, and it's for say 90 minutes or 80 minutes, is that response like kind of expected to be given in a 80 or a 90 minute? Because
Yes.
like it's too detailed, right? I find that kind of very detailed, and I don't see myself in a position that I can give those kind of responses even maybe 1 or 2 months down the line, right? So
No, you
those,
can't give that even 6 months down the line. That is not
yeah,
expected out of you. So that is not expected out of you or any other student, and which is what we were mentioning even earlier in the session. Like, don't like, you should just be directionally in line with the CPA study responses. You're not expected to write as much. Just feel, just have a feeler, like closely watch the feedback guide that we give you. So how do you actually get a C? How do you actually get a RC? There you would see the parameters. There you would see, okay, for C, I just had to, tick off these points. Let's say you have to write pros and cons of a particular project, and the board response has written six pros and six cons. That is not expected out of you. Even if you had written a total of pros and cons, total of five also, there could be a chance that that can get you a C, depending on the feedback guide, right? So the expectation out of you is reasonable only, but board responses will always be exhaustive because they want to cover almost everything that a student can think of, so that your response somewhere is a subset of that. So
They generally want to, like, explain it to you. They're not writing, because you will see that in each of their pointer they have 4 lines, right? So why they do that is just so that you know how
they are thinking.
yeah, how to best write, and they're trying to explain you as a candidate, but you're not expected to follow that.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, final two questions that we'll be taking today, Dami. Damile?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So thank you for that session. Although I joined late, but I'm
Mhm.
glad that the session is recorded. So I'm writing in September, and I'm also a student of yours. So I have two questions. The first question that I have is, with the study test that we have that you gave us, do you think that is sufficient enough for us, or you want to advise or you want to suggest that we should, get another material, maybe ebook that we can read with it? Do you think that is sufficient enough? Because I
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
You were so direct, you were so precise in all those, study texts. So do you think I can confidently say that
Yeah.
having read it for like 2 or 3 times, I am good to go?
Yeah. So obviously, these notes are devised from a very exam oriented point of view. So this, in many of the past exams, what students' feedback for us has been that almost everything what was asked in the exam was either of our strategy sessions or out of the study notes or the sessions, right? So you should be good with that. And again, one of the things, once you will go through this session again, which you have missed, perhaps like the starting part of things, always focus on the bigger things. Let's say our course doesn't cover 2% of what questions may be asked in the exam. Thing is, do you want to spend that maybe 100 additional hours just to cover that 2%? No, right? Like a very reasonable answer would be no. That is where smart study comes in, that focus on the bigger things which can easily help you pass in a limited amount of time, plus you can revise multiple times, because that will give you confidence. Even if there is a question here or there, let's say out of the 13 questions on day 2, if you are able to answer 12 questions with a lot of confidence, that 13th question will come easily. Maybe you are able to get a RC on the 13th one. That is what you are expected. Yep.
Thank you.
And
Then the
did you have
second
a
one is,
second question?
yeah, the second question is, a lot of people have been saying it is advisable that you write capstone 2 so that you can get prepared. So with you, do you think we might not need the capstone 2, at least for us to have actually,
So Capstone 2
studying with you?
majorly is about getting your cases marked. They just do a module workshop, and we've covered a great detail of that in the strategy sessions already. In the module
Okay,
workshop, they just like give you one example, one question, and they'll ask you to write it yourself, and then they will walk you through that question in the module workshop.
Yeah.
So they just have that 2-day module workshop. Other than that, it's only
Marking cases.
case marking. So
And you are already covered for the case marking with us. The schedule that we will be giving you for your September attempt, that has almost 26 cases. You know what case to write when. So just follow the schedule. Just try
okay,
to complete all your technicals before June 1, when we
okay,
would actually begin with our, case writing process. Just follow that. If you're able to, even abide by that schedule, which is very flexible, you would have so big pockets of time when you have free time, then you would be thinking what to do if you are actually abiding by that schedule.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tamil.
Mm.
Yes, Akshay, last question.
Yeah, thanks. So first question is, for example, in few cases I written, right? In FR, there was exceptionally different AO. For example, I maybe didn't understand the right standard, right? But I did that AO fully. But again, when I marked it, it was wrong. For example, so will I be graded NC directly for using a wrong standard, or is there a possibility of still getting RC if I completed that?
no, if it is a wrong standard completely,
Hmm.
then obviously it will be an NC.
NC, okay. And then moving to the MA AO. So on day 2, generally on MA, it is expected to do both quants and qual, right? Uh, is there
I think
like,
it would depend. Like it depends if
okay.
you have some qualitative facts also.
Yeah, not
Mhm.
necessary.
It's
if
not,
if you have a question on ABC costing,
yeah,
that
Mm,
just requires you to calculate, the overhead rate and then the
yeah,
calculation. That is all you need to do.
mhm. Sometimes they specifically mention do from both quant and
yeah,
qual. That is clear. But
yeah,
most of the time they just mention the quants.
yeah.
But qualitative is based on the case fact. Like if it is, you think it is given, then you have to do, right?
Yeah, like even if it is given, it's not like day one where you have to make headings of pro, con, write 4 points and that
Mm-hmm.
detailed. even if you come across some case facts, you can definitely make a couple of points, if you're able to do that. But I think mostly this would be a finance thing, because in finance generally they ask you to make decisions like buy, sell,
Mm-hmm.
lease. What options of financing should you do? In those sort of alternatives, there are always qualitative factors. So
Mm-hmm.
there you are definitely expected to, do the qualitative as well. But I don't think in MA there will be a lot of
No.
qualitative unless the question specifically, gives some facts.
There could be a tendency to write assumptions.
Yeah.
Surely where some assumptions are applicable, surely do write a couple of them, because you would see that in the board responses too, but not really, like not all the time.
Because few cases I debriefed and then I saw that I didn't do one AO only. So that's why I was asking this question.
Mhm.
Okay. And then is sometimes like there is a communication at the end of the feedback guide, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes we start using the first person tone, right? Sometimes while writing the case, like uh, is that really matter in the like in grading RCC?
No.
Like sometimes we uh, write AO like we are explaining not as a controller or maybe not as an in the position of CPA, like you should explain to your client, right? But sometimes I use different language, like I'm not using a very professional tone, or maybe it is more academic
All
tone,
right.
I mean.
Doesn't
That's
matter.
fine.
You just have to
Okay,
explain yourself.
That's
That's it.
fine.
okay, sure. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll take one final question from Saisha.
Yeah, sorry. Just last question. So I know that from 1st June you will start the case study thing. So just wanted to confirm, like from like the very first case, do we have to sit for 4 hours, 5 hours and do that, or it's just critical thinking?
No, so whatever you would see in the schedule, so we have broken down. So day three cases, you would have to sit generally for 60 to 90, not 60, 70 to 90 minutes. That is what is needed. The
Mm-hmm.
4 hour or 5 hour setting is applicable only on day two and day one cases. Obviously, on the final day of day three exam, it is a 4 hour exam which has three day three cases. But during your practice, initially you just practice one case each, which would be between 70 to 90 minutes. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
as you go down a couple of months afterwards, then you can, maybe try one more case, and that is given in the schedule. So I will,
Okay.
we'll just roll out the email soon,
Okay, thank you.
right? Okay, and I think we had one more question from Isha.
Thank you so much. I have been raising my hand and lowering many times, but I really want to understand, since I'm getting my cases marked from you. So how would you how should I consider your marking? Is it on the lenient side or is it on the stricter side if I compare it with the actual
With
CFE exam?
it ideal side. It is ideal.
Like, what
Okay.
do you feel with the way you attempt? Do you feel we mark strict?
Um, no, like, should I be relaxed after looking at my marks, or I should be
So
worried?
as
Like,
Guneet was mentioning earlier, if you are seeing C's or competent responses, don't take it leniently. Still try to take some takeaways from there, even though your grading may be good, but still try to take as many takeaways. 5 hours of case means more than 5 hours of debrief. That should be your,
Ultimate goal.
ultimate goal. You still have 40 days to go, so even these 40 days, even though you may be doing good today, but these 40 days do matter,
hmm.
because you would lose out on your memory for technicals, lose out on your flow of case writing.
And lose patience also
Yeah,
because you have been working from
yeah.
so long on it.
So
And
even still, like even someone who is starting today, like starting CFE today, maybe at a better position, who has already done the entire CFE at this time. The reason is because the last 40 days do matter in terms of energy. Like the last, keeping some energy for this last 30, 40 days is very important. So,
Mhm.
just keep doing well, and just try to be disciplined.
Okay, one small question. Um, If I miss attempting for day two assurance, like if I miss three AOs straight away, like because that is my elective, and but I secured C, RCs, and CDs or Cs, anything between C or RCs or CD, would I be? Are there any chances that I
So as
would
we mentioned,
not clear it?
you don't know what the guide would say. So never ever try to play on, especially on your depth for day two. That is what we keep on mentioning. Day two is more about depth. Never ever compromise on assurance or your elective.
And
So
your only target should be that, like I just keep like telling Ravneet also this, that at the time that we were giving exams, we did not think of all these permutations and combinations. And
Mhm.
it you can keep it very simple. You just have to follow the timeline
That's
and you have to attempt all the AOs.
And
It's that simple.
how do you even would know? Are you getting a C or a RC in the question?
Exactly.
And
You don't know.
or a CD? Like how do you know? Even after
Mhm.
attempting a case, you can never know whether it would be RC, C, or CD, and could be NC also.
Yeah.
And like when you go with the point of view and the mindset and the preparation that you
Mhm.
will be attempting all the AOs, trust me, even then you will end up missing one or two.
Yeah.
Because it's just exam pressure. You will
Yeah.
do it for the first time.
Yeah.
There will be variables. You might
Mhm.
have to take a washroom break. You might not be feeling very up to the mark that day. There are so many variables. So you can't sit today and think that, maybe I will attempt 10 questions to my best, but 2
Mhm.
questions I will skip. You can't do that. You should
Okay.
not do that. Right? Your
Okay.
aim should be completing it fully.
And between management and FR, it's depth in one of these, right?
Sorry,
For
you
day
cut
two.
off. Sure.
I'm just asking regarding day two. So we need to achieve depth in either management or
Again, we
FR.
are not able to hear you, Isha, somehow.
You're asking about depth?
Yeah, the other two subjects like AOs, management or FR or both.
They say that you need depth in assurance and then depth in either MA or
Okay.
FR. Um, but yeah,
But see,
like
at this time where you still have 40 days to go, you should not be planning what to leave. You may still be struggling on time management. Every student is, but at this time, we, especially as tutors, cannot guide you what to leave or what
Mm-hmm.
not to leave. Your objective is to finish your exam.
Yeah, I
And
get
as
your
we
point.
mentioned, yeah.
But I was just looking at my
So
graph of the case markings from you. I was just looking at the graph and I was kind of evaluating my growth.
sorry,
Like,
Isha,
am
perhaps,
I
we can perhaps reconnect separately as well because we are not able to hear you. You
your
are
voice
breaking in
is
between.
breaking.
okay? Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay, so all good, guys. We can. Did you want to answer any of this? So we have a couple of questions in the chat
I
that we can
Even
address.
both the questions is the same, that you are missing out on AOs.
Yeah.
I would strongly suggest that, I think, not sure if you attended the full coffee chat, but just we'll upload this and rewatch this again. But we really emphasized on the fact that the reason that most of the people here are not able to complete the cases is because you're not sticking to the time allocation to each AO. In the strategy sessions, we did the timeline breakdown for day two also and day three also. And we mentioned that this much time should be for reading. And then this is the time that you are left with for each AO.
Yeah.
Let's say we said that 20 minutes for day two, all the questions in day two, right? So I just mentioned, and like we really focus that if you know that every question needs to be 20 minutes, then you do not exceed that 20 minutes. It is that simple. If you make that 20-minute to 30-minute, then you miss out on those 10 minutes on another AO, right? And if you do that 10-minute exceeding on every AO, then you miss out on 3 AOs in total. It's that simple, right? So just stick to that time. Keep looking at the watch when you are practicing cases so that you get an idea, and then take notes, like make notes that, okay, today FR question I started at 9, and now when you move to the next question, note it down that you are moving to the next question at 9:20, 9:30. And then next question, say 9:30 you started, then you note down, okay, I ended at 9:40. So at the end of your practice, you should see and analyze which AOs are taking more time. Then introspect why they are taking more time. What is taking more time? Is it the analysis you are doing which is taking more time? Is it the technicals you are paraphrasing taking more time? So you can consider copy pasting from nausea. Like things like that. It is a process. But first you need to know what is taking more time, right? And try to stick to those times. So I think that is the answer to both the questions we have.
Yeah. And sorry, Kashif, could not understand your question. If you can describe that. And Akshay, okay.
Sorry, administrative question. In exam, how timer we will take care?
So
Like it runs.
Akshay, on this one, we would be conducting another session
Okay, okay.
closer to the exam, because the focus we wanted to keep today is
Hmm.
just how your next 40 days should be. Leave the admin part, because if we start the admin part, 1 hour more, we are just discussing what to take, should we take snack bars in the exam, things like that. We would be conducting that session as well, because that is also important. We understand that, but we would be conducting it separately.
I agree. Just tell me one thing, like how to track the time, like when I'm writing, like because I'm not able to track per AO. So shall I stop after every
Sorry?
AO?
Sorry, I'm not
No,
able to hear
why
you,
it's
Akshay.
cutting for us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying just tell me, like when I'm writing cases, shall I track time per AO? Like after writing each AO, shall I write how many minutes I took?
Yeah.
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 Okay, okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right, guys. I hope you would have taken a lot from the session today, especially because we uh, changed the pattern a bit of today's coffee chat, telling you what all you should be focusing on. If there is anyone in the chat, or even otherwise, who did not go through the first part of the session, so surely go through, especially the first 45 minutes. We did not cover any Q&A there. We just passed on all of our like suggestions or improvement points, or what your mindset should be, or where in fact many students are actually falling out, or the 10% of the students who do not pass in our academy, why they don't pass, things like that. So try to keep this as a basically a wake up call or a reminder for all of you who are doing well. Keep doing well, just try to be disciplined, because 40 days are very important. And for students who think they need to invest more time, or maybe they're not doing well, so just try to take our suggestions or improvement points the way we have mentioned initially in the session today.
And go back to the technicals and strategy sessions, please.
All right, guys, thank you very much for taking out time. We'll meet you soon sometime, maybe at the end of maybe like closer to your exams, for another admin session.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.